I hope everybody is having a fantastic Wednesday so far. My name is Irizarry. I work here on the customer success team at InsuredMine. Today's webinar, we're going to talk a little bit about tasks and how you can utilize them within the context of the InsuredMine portal to improve and maximize your productivity as an individual agent, as a part of a team. So I'm really excited to get started. Provide a little bit of an overview of our agenda today. We're going to go through the demo portion. I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about what we utilize tasks for, go over the task list module, and then we'll have a guest speaker come in and talk a little bit about how they utilize tasks in their InsuredMine processes. At the end of the session, we will talk a little bit and have an opportunity for questions and answer segment. But during the demo portion, if you guys do have any questions, please do not hesitate to post them in the chat or the Q&A session, and we will answer those live during the call. And then we'll go ahead and wrap up about the top of the hour and get everything settled. So before I go into my slide talking a little bit about tasks, I did want to introduce today's guest speaker. Her name is Michelle Sheese. She is with Family First Insurance Agency. They've been a client with InsuredMine, and they also, she'll be talking a little bit about how they utilize tasks in their process. Michelle, do you want to take a minute or two to introduce yourself properly?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle, and I work with Family First Insurance Agency. I started in June of last year, and I'm the operations manager here. We do not have a service team yet, so I am over the service department as well, kind of building out that process. And so today I'll be able to talk to you on a little bit and kind of show you how we use tasks from our sales to our service side. And thank you.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Michelle. So we'll come back to Michelle in a little bit here. But first and foremost, like I said, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about tasks and specifically how can tasks help you as an agency and how can they help you as individual agents. First and foremost, the task list module. As most of you will probably be aware, we can add tasks in any of three locations in InsuredMine. We can create tasks in the deal card, we can create tasks on the account or the contact level. What the task list module allows us the ability to do is it allows us to manage all of those tasks from those separate entities in one location on the portal, so we can track all of our touch points, all of our objectives very easily. The other aspect of tasks that I think is beneficial is the opportunity for more collaboration between agents. What we can do is we can assign multiple agents to a specific task. And what that allows them to do is it allows them to communicate with each other via the comment section of a task and walk through the entire workflow of that objective, right? And then as an admin or as an agent later down the line, we can come back to that task and we can track the entire timeline of events. We can see from start to finish how they worked on this task, what objectives were completed, and we can see that entire history of just that one entity. Oh, I apologize. One other thing to note in regards to streamlining processes, right? We can take advantage of task templates. We can create templates for any number of tasks to make it a little easier the next time we want to generate something. We can build those tasks into our automations, whether it's a workflow automation, whether it's going to be our pipeline automation. We can work these tasks into our existing processes to simplify our assignment of objectives to agents and to simplify tracking, right? So that we can very easily maintain, these are the number of tasks that I have assigned to an agent as part of this process, and which of these have been completed, which are still pending. It just gives you a very easy way to keep track of all of these items. Okay, so with those 3 points in mind, what I want to do now is I do want to go ahead and share my screen, and I'm going to walk through a little bit of the task list and how you can utilize those items there. So just give me 1 second to switch over. Okay. Hopefully everybody can still see my screen. What I'm going to do now in this demo portal is I'm going to come over here to the left-hand side. We're going to see all of our different modules available to us. But what I'm going to focus on at the moment is the task list specifically. So for the task list, as I mentioned before, the task list gives us a single module where we can manage and maintain all of our tasks throughout the entirety of the InsuredMine portal. Regardless of which location you have assigned this, whether you've assigned it to a deal card, whether you've assigned it to a contact, whether you've assigned it to an account overall, we can view all of those tasks from here. I can see that I have an open task for a call, right? And we can see who it is assigned to. Now, when we open up this task to edit it, we're going to see a couple different options here. We can track the due date. If you need to make a change to that, very easy. Just click into this text box and select the new date. We can even get as specific as to set a specific time on that date to generate. Then we can track our assignees, who is currently assigned to this deal card. We can track the priority and make adjustments to that as needed, depending on the task. And as I mentioned before, if you look down in this bottom section, we can also leave comments. So if you're working on a specific task with another agent, we can leave a comment here for them to review at a later time, right? We can leave comments to track our progress on a task. That way, if an admin needs to come in later and see, hey, what's going on with this task? Where do we stand? They can very easily track the timeline of activities from here and see where they stand and see what processes were involved with completing this objective. Okay. When we go in to create a new task, as I mentioned, we can add them from multiple levels. If we create a task from the task list, we will first have the ability to select a template. Okay. Now, templates function in a lot of the same way that templates function in our engagement module as well. We would create a template. We can select it from this dropdown, and it will autofill the information that we've put in previously. Okay. In order to edit a task or create a task template, we would simply click on this settings cogwheel here in the top right corner. And from the drop-down menu that appears, we can click Add Task Template. Okay. That will allow us to generate a new template. So we can say, let's say I want to create a template to prepare quotes, right? That way, every time I want to generate one, I don't have to build a whole new template from scratch. We can mark this as a task. We can determine an assignee now, or we can do that when the task is actually generated. Then we're going to mark our priority, whether it is low, normal, medium, or high priority. In this case, I'm going to mark it as normal. We can add a description line here if you want to relay any basic details in regards to this task that you're creating. Okay. We have our description line, and we can also determine our due date. So what we're saying here is for every task, for every prepare a quote task that we generate, after how many days is this task going to be due, right? So basically in your process, how long do you typically take to prepare and send off a quote? That is the number of days we should allow for this task to be completed. I will say, as an example, I will say we'll give them 3 days. I can select the time if I so choose. So I can say 3 days at 10 a.m. This should be due and completed. And then I will click submit. So now that I have generated this task template, I can go into my add task button here. I can select that prepare quote task, and I can assign it to one of my individual accounts or contacts. So let's just say, we'll find Alex in here. We'll assign this to his account. And we will also assign it to the contact. Okay, if we're creating a task in relation to a specific policy, we can select it from the dropdown as well. In this case, I'm quoting him for a whole new deal, so I won't necessarily need to add that. We will then determine the assignee. I will assign this to Alex. You can see that the data I already inputted for the priority and the task description have autofilled here for me, as well as the due date automatically setting itself to 5 days after today's date. I can click save, and that task will now be generated and assigned to Alex. So if I, as the admin, want to go in and see what tasks are assigned to him right now, I can click assignee from this dropdown in filters. I can select Alex's name, click apply, and I can see any tasks that are currently assigned to him. Okay. Additionally, as mentioned before, if we wanted to create a task, say on a specific deal card, right? So if we go into our pipeline and we find our, oh, sorry, 1 second, there we go. So we have our deal card here for John Doe, right? And we want to generate a task to send him a follow-up email, right? So we can select our template here. It will walk through the rest of the steps as previously mentioned. We'll see that the information I included auto-filled along with the due date, and we can click save. So this will create the task specifically on the deal card level. And as we have mentioned, as you should be aware from your previous trainings, when you generate an item on the deal card level, that task will also be accessible to you from their account and from their contact page. So we can see the task that I created on the deal card is also visible here. Okay. Then when a task is completed, all we would need to do is click on this mark done button. We'll check that box. That will be marked as complete, and it will remove it from our active to-do list. Now, it doesn't remove it from the deal card outright. We can come over here to our task section and find it under the done. Okay. Something else that we can do if we create the task here in our task list is we can select our action button, and we can actually map a task to a pipeline card or to a policy after it has been created. So if we click on this map pipeline card for the quote preparation, we can select that from the dropdown. Unfortunately, I don't have any assigned to Alex right now, so you won't see any here. Let me just go ahead and map for this card instead. But you would be able to generate that and map it to the specific policy pipeline card that you are looking to assign this task to. Okay. Just taking a second to see if there's any questions real quick. I think Kate, you're talking about Epic activity type. So that's going to be specific to applied Epic, the AMS. We are the ability to sync those back as activities in Epic, which is a different entity from the tasks. So that's why you're seeing that additional line there. Not every agency is going to see that line. Some of them for AMS, we just sync the task back as tasks in their system. Some of them, unfortunately, don't have that ability to sync tasks back. But in your case, Kate, that's why you're seeing that additional line. And unfortunately, there isn't a way to get rid of it, just because it is a requirement in order to sync that to AMS. Hannah, you currently use Hawksoft. Does it integrate with Hawksoft tasks? Yes, so it will sync back to Hawksoft, just like your other activity types. It'll sync back within the logs on the account and contact level in Hawksoft. Curtis, you can create your own task templates as we walk through here. You can create any task template that you want. However, the icons here for task type are locked in. You don't have any way to customize these. And then once a task template is created, you can manage it from this separate section. And that will allow you to go back in and edit any task template. So you're not locked into it once it's been created. You can also click on the share button and you can share the template amongst your other agents. Obviously, again, anybody that creates these tasks, you can share it with them and assign it. And then that way, when Alex wants to go in, he can go in and use that task template for anything that he is creating on his end. Another important thing I want to note in regard to tasks, if we do open up our settings real quick, this is going to be something that is specific to admins. We're going to go into our pipeline setting. We're going to scroll down here and we're going to select our task setting. Okay, so task settings. When we generate a task on a deal card, we can set it so that the system will automatically mark task as completed when a card is marked won or lost. Now, sometimes you may not want to enable this just in case you are actually actively tracking certain objectives in order to close a card, right? We want to make sure that those marked is done ahead of time prior to closing out a card. But this is a nice feature to have just in case you want to ensure that there aren't any pending tasks related to a specific card once it's been closed. What we can also manage from here is we can manage our notification settings. If we scroll down on this right side, just from notification settings, we can manage our task due date notifications. We can generate a notification based on the due date, and we can generate a notification if it is still marked as pending and that due date has passed. In both cases, the assigned user would be notified. They would receive an email, and they can also access that notification here in the top right corner. All right, so that is the task list module. There are plenty of other things you can do in here. There are filters that I didn't even touch on quite yet. You can filter by things like due date. You can filter by assignee type. You can filter by status or priority. And once you have a list generated, you also do have the ability to download a task list as well. And I don't believe you guys are gonna be able to see this once I download it because I think I'm only sharing my browser, but give me 1 second and I can fix that. Okay, so you can see I downloaded an Excel spreadsheet with my tasks so I can view them offline as well. Any information included on the task on the InsuredMine portal would be visible on this list. Okay. And that is what I have for task lists. So what I'd like to do now is I would like to turn it over to Michelle so she can talk a little bit about how she uses tasks within the context of her automations in the pipeline. So Michelle, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. If you want to go ahead and share and open up your InsuredMine portal, I'll let you take it here for a few minutes.
All right. Thank you, Alex. Okay, I believe I'm sharing my screen now and I'm on our sales pipeline. Can everybody see?
Yep, we can see your screen.
Perfect. Okay, so what we have done on our sales pipeline, we have created an automation under deal actions for deal one. So every time that an agent sells a policy and they close their deal card as one, we have a task created immediately after 1 hour. And so we did a 1 hour delay just in case the agent needs to come in here and edit something or change something up, add something before I receive the task on my end. They do have 1 hour before I'm messing with the task to be able to make edits to it. So this is for Bind and Epic. So we do use Epic, and we created this task, and then it's automatically assigned to myself right now since I am our service team. And it just has that I will search the policy in Epic or search the account, create policies for each of the policies that were won, and then attach the documentation for those won policies. So the agents will all update the declarations page for any policy sold on that deal card that was won. And then this is what my task list looks like. So I have it filtered to where I'm the assignee, so you can see my name on all of these. And then the deal type is bind in Epic for the title. And then we can see the contact name and my due date, etc. So whenever I'm working on these tasks, I can click bind in Epic and then see that same screen pull up where I can see myself as the assignee, that same description that we put on the automation. I can see that Stephen was the agent who created this task and sold the policy, and then the client's contact information. And so I would click on the client's name. I can go over here and see any notes that the agent entered for the policy, the attachments, so I can see that this was just an auto policy that was sold since he only attached the auto application. And then I would go into Epic. We just have one Epic seat, so that's why I'm the one plugging all this information in. And I would put the policy information into Epic, and then I can close out of the client's account. And I've actually completed this one already, so I'll just go and hit mark as done. And that's kind of how we set it up in between the sales and the service side. And you can see in the ones that I've already completed, we have two other pipelines as well. We have a reshop pipeline that we created, and then as well as one for an inside sales team. And so we created that same task automation for those as well. And so if any of those were pending, you'd be able to see the different task titles there too, showing up in my pending. And yeah, that's just kind of how we use it, moving from one pipeline to the service side.
And then Michelle, do you mind for me just going back to your task list real quick?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I just want to show everyone, we can see the bind and Epic task title there. Michelle, if you could hover over the little shaking hands icon next to the title. So if you click on that button from the task list, what it will do is it will take you from your task list and it will take you back to that specific deal card where you can then view your to-do list. We can see any tasks that have been generated here. And just like Michelle was doing, you can manage those tasks. You can mark them as completed. You can track who assigned it, who is the agent on the card, and view everything right here. Okay, so I will go ahead and I'll share my screen again. Thanks so much, Michelle, for stepping in on that.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Yeah, so I do want to mention a couple of things in regards to the pipeline. Obviously, we saw how Michelle had those tasks created for herself. Now, they assign them as part of their deal action automation. Now, you can build a task and assign it as part of any step in your workflow. We can go into a specific stage, the prospect stage. We can click Add New Automation and assign a task this way. Just like we did when we created tasks individually, we can select a template if we choose to, or we can create a brand new task here from scratch and assign that to the agent of the pipeline card, the agent of the account, or we can select a specific individual like Michelle did with her tasks. After that time, we would then select our trigger when this task generates. So we'll say after 3 days in this specific pipeline, we want to generate a task, and it is set to be due 3 days after that generation date. Okay. Much like with other automations, we can also decide to filter these tasks by specific conditions, whether it's specific lead sources, categories, carriers, or labels. So I can say I want to generate a quote task, but I only want to generate it for those that have maybe a specific label here. Maybe I want to generate for pending documents, just as an example, right? We can attach this specific task to only generate for deal cards that have this label assigned to it. I will save it. So now any deal cards that I create in the prospect stage after 3 days, As long as they have that label assigned to it, it will generate the quote for them. Or sorry, it will generate the task for them. Okay. Throughout the rest of the automation section, we have deal actions, we have deal health, we have adding labels. All of these automations work in much the same way. It's just a matter of determining how we trigger it, right? So in Michelle's case, and in Family First case, they trigger it based on when the salesperson marks that as a 1 deal, right? So we have our deal action set to 1. When somebody marks a deal as 1 now, I want to create a task to generate a follow-up email. Or maybe I want to create a task like Michelle did to bind it within my AMS and create the policy, right? Regardless, what we'll do is we will set this, we will save that automation. So now, anytime I go into mark a deal as 1, this task generates. You can do the same thing if you need to mark a deal as lost or track it throughout the health parameters. No matter what, you will go through the process of adding a new automation stage. You would set up your task here, either through a template or by building it from scratch. And then that would be built into your automation moving forward. So now anytime we bring a prospect to this stage, for instance, if our automation was active, we would be able to select our options as normal. And one of those will be the ability to turn on or off that specific task. One other way to generate tasks that I do want to mention while we're on the call is through our automations in the workflow. So if we create a workflow automation, let's say we generate one for policy renewal, we can click customize and build our custom workflow. One of the modes that we have to select from is going to be tasks. So we can generate a task as part of this automation. It will assign to the contact level by default, as all workflow automations are going to be tied to the contact. We will enter our task name. We'll say, no response. We'll select our assignee. The assignee can either be an individual or it can be the agent on the contact. We will select our priority, verify our task type, enter our due date, and type in our description here in the bottom. Once that's done, you would go through the process as normal of building your workflow, just next, start, and then that task would generate based on the schedule we have in place. So right now, this automation triggers 60 days prior to the expiration date. We have a task set to go out at that same time. So 60 days prior to the expiration date of this policy, we will generate a task on the contact level so that the agent can go in and perform that objective. And that's what I have for you guys today in regards to tasks specifically. I don't see any questions at the moment in the chat, but would love to hear from you guys. If you have any questions, if there's anything maybe that I didn't cover in quite as much detail, if you guys have something you want me to follow up on, please add those in the chat. Happy to review anything here. We've got some time. Just go ahead and get those questions in. Let's see. So I think Maggie, that might be related to something for users. I can follow up with you that off the call. And then in regards to Michael's question for importing tasks from AMS instead of the other way around, unfortunately, it just depends on what AMS you're using. So you can follow up. But I believe for tasks specifically, if you're using AMS 360, now certs, or next year, I believe we have those tasks, the ability to sync those tasks from the AMS into InsuredMine. And then for just about every AMS, I think with the exception of Easy Links, we can sync tasks from IM back to AMS. Okay, Bob, yes, it absolutely is available to join, is absolutely available to view online. We typically post them most oftentimes the Thursday after the session on the website, but we will also send out a recap email with a link to the recording at the same time. Okay, Crystal, is there an automation if a task is completed, another one is generated? Unfortunately, there isn't at this time. The automations that we have in place are primarily based on trigger dates and assignments. So you can't generate in that sense, but what you could do is you could build your workflow out ahead of time to automatically generate that task. And if you simply don't end up needing it, we can stop that automation later down the line. Okay. Hannah, if you set a task, that is just for internal purposes, right? So we're setting a task to tell the agent essentially to send a follow-up email. It's not automatically generating that email, but little off topic, but you can set a second step, or you can set an automation to automatically email somebody if you want to. That would be an entirely separate automation. Jack, does InsuredMine have services or representatives to help build agency processes? Absolutely. Everyone should have a CSM assigned to them, so they'll help you with initial training. And then if you need assistance beyond that, our support team is available via live chat, and you can schedule additional conversations with your CSM, and they'll have those conversations with you on any additional charges for training if needed. Let's see, because we created a workflow to complete a renewal questionnaire for renewal. If the form is completed. Here we'll complete a renewal questionnaire for renewal. If the form is completed, is there a way? Because to answer your question, I don't believe there's a way to set that automatically from the form. As I mentioned earlier in the call, within the pipeline, if we have a task assigned to a deal card, we can set an automation so that when that is eventually marked as a won or lost deal and closed, all tasks assigned to that deal card are automatically marked as done. So you may just want to build that renewal questionnaire if you haven't already. Build that renewal questionnaire into your into your deal card for renewals, and then generate it that way. More text me to pop up. I think you may be referring to this. Crystal, let me know if that's what you're referring here. Give me 1 second. I will go in and mark this as complete. Is this what you're referring to? Crystal, this new task window? Yeah, so that's something that's optional. If we go back into our settings right here, we can turn this on. But basically what we're doing is we're essentially giving the opportunity to add an additional task when marking it as done. So I know earlier you asked about that, if there is an automation to do it. There isn't necessarily, but you can use this task pop-up to manually create a new task when you're marking as the original one is completed. And I think that's the same thing Joanne is asking about. Yeah, so this is an option within your task list settings that is enabled. You can choose to disable it, and then that second pop-up window will not appear. But what we're doing is we're essentially giving the ability to, once you mark a task is completed, that pop-up appears and allows you to add a follow-up task to that initial one. So that's why the pop-up appears. If you want to turn it off, again, just go into your task list, click on the settings cogwheel, find settings from the drop-down, and just disable it. Okay. Hopefully that clarified that for you both. Does anybody else have questions or concerns relating to the tasks within InsuredMine? Oh, I think we still have a question. Let's see. Manual policies in the downloads. Like if you manually create a policy within InsuredMine. Crystal, I might have to follow up with you with that one offline. I can have either myself or another one of the member of the customer success team reach out to you and follow up on that. Okay. So, but in regards to that, we just answered everybody's questions. Hopefully, we were able to provide you guys with a lot of new information today in regards to utilizing tasks within the system. As I mentioned at the very start of the call, if you guys have any other questions, you are more than welcome to contact your customer success manager that you are working with, or reach out to the support team via live chat. Additionally, I do want to make sure everybody's aware that we have launched the InsuredMine Learning Academy. We have 2 courses in there at the moment for admin and agent certification, where you can go in and get a little bit more information on some of the modules that are most often utilized by agencies in InsuredMine, like pipeline, like engagement and reporting. But you can find video tutorials and quizzes that will give you more insights into how our platform operates. I also wanted to make sure everyone was aware, we do host these webinars every Wednesday at the same time. So if you would like to register for our upcoming sessions, you can scan this QR code, or you can go to insuredmine.com/webinars and register for each session there. Give everybody a second just in case. Cam, I see you just posted, will you be able to access session recording? Yes. So as I mentioned before, we are going to upload each session to the website. Typically, that's the Thursday after. It may take a couple more days, depending. But we will also be emailing out a recap after every session that has the recording for that week. So you'll be able to access it in a number of ways. Okay. The last thing I would just like to ask, if you guys are enjoying these webinars, if you're here every week, we would love to hear some of your feedback. If you guys wouldn't mind, it's, I believe, a 9 to 10 question form. Just want to hear a little bit about what your experience is on these webinars. If you guys have any feedback for us, what we can improve on, what you'd like to see covered in a future session, we would really appreciate and love to hear from everyone that's joining these sessions. So please feel free to use that. We also link this feedback form in our recap emails. So if you don't have the ability to scan the QR code right now, you can access that link through those recaps. Okay. And that is everything that I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for joining the session. I hope you guys enjoyed your time here as much as I did. we'll wrap up a little early and you guys can head out. So thank you so much for the time. Thanks, Michelle, again for joining and talking through everyone through your process. And we'll see you guys next week.